Most people think that karma is punishment. They think if something painful keeps happening in their life, the universe is somehow testing them, punishing them, or making them suffer because something that they did wrong. But after decades of working with people and observing thousands of healing journeys, I have come to see this quite differently. The universe is not interested in punishing you. Life is interested in educating you. And that changes everything. Because what we call karma is often nothing more than a lesson that has yet not been fully learned and integrated. Think about the patterns that keep showing up in your life. Maybe it is the same type of relationship, the same conflict, the same financial struggle, the same feeling of rejection, the same fear of being seen, the same feeling that no matter how much work you put in, life somehow brings you back to the exact same place you thought you had already healed. Now, many people assume this means that they are failing, but I see it differently. I see it as evidence that lesson is still active because life does not repeat what has already been mastered. Life only repeats what remains unresolved. So, one of the biggest misunderstandings about spiritual growth is that people believe understanding a lesson means that they have learned it. But understanding is not embodiment. You can understand forgiveness and still carry resentment. You can understand self worth but still abandon yourself. You can understand boundaries and still be unable to say no. You can understand abundance and still operate from fear and scarcity. The mind may understand, but your nervous system, your emotions, and your subconscious beliefs and your energetic field may still be operating from the old program. And this is why the same patterns keep returning. Not because life is cruel, but because life is compassionate. It keeps bringing the lesson back until every part of you has integrated it. I often say that your life is a mirror of your inner operating system. Your inner OS contains your beliefs, wounds, emotional patterns, ancestral conditioning, karmic imprints, unconscious assumptions about reality. And until that operating system changes, your external reality has very little choice but to keep reflecting what you are assuming and thinking right back to you. This is why healing is not about changing your circumstances first. It is about upgrading your consciousness that created those circumstances. Now let's talk about suffering, because suffering and karma are not the same thing. This is where many spiritual teachings become misunderstood. Pain is a part of being human. Loss happens, disappointment happens, change happens. But suffering often begins when we resist what life is trying to show us, when we refuse to see the lesson, when we insist reality should be a different way, when we keep blaming others for experiences that are inviting us to grow. The suffering is not always in the event. The suffering is often in the resistance. I have seen people spend decades fighting the same lesson, a lesson of self worth, a lesson in trust, a lesson in personal responsibility, a lesson in receiving, a lesson in self love. Now, life patiently waits. Then presents the lesson again, and then again, and then again. Only the actors change. This lesson remains. Now, you may leave one relationship and find yourself in another relationship with a completely different person, but you will experience the same emotional dynamic. You may leave one job and encounter the same power struggles in another workplace. You may move to a different city and discover your anxiety moved with you. Because the lesson was never outside of you, the lesson was inside. And until it is integrated, life continues to provide you with opportunities to learn it. This is why spiritual growth is often difficult. Not because the lesson is difficult, but because the ego doesn't like to surrender. The ego wants control. The soul wants evolution. The ego wants certainty. The soul wants expansion. The ego wants to stay within the familiar, but the ego wants freedom. And every meaningful transformation requires us to let go of an old identity. And this is why awakening can feel uncomfortable. You are not just changing habits, you are changing who you believe yourself to be. Now, many people ask me why there seems to be such a massive spiritual awakening happening around the world today. And my perspective is quite simple. I believe that now, finally, human consciousness is evolving on a larger scale. People are no longer satisfied with surface level answers. They are beginning to realize that achievement without inner peace is not success, that money without purpose is not fulfillment, that relationships without consciousness become suffering, that healing requires more positive thinking. People are beginning to ask the deeper questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Why do these patterns keep repeating? What is my soul trying to learn? And those questions naturally lead us towards awakening. Not because awakening is trendy, but because consciousness is expanding. The old ways of living are no longer working. The old identities are breaking down, and the soul is asking for something much more authentic, something more aligned, something more true. Now, let's talk about manifestation because there's a great deal of confusion around it. Most people think manifestation is about asking. I believe manifestation is about becoming. Life does not respond primarily to your words. Life responds to your state of being. You can repeat affirmations all day long that you are abundant. But if your inner operating system is programmed for lack, fear, and unworthiness, then that is a signal you will continue broadcasting. The universe responds less to what you say and more to who you are. This is why healing is manifestation work. Every time you release fear, you raise your capacity to receive. Every time you release resentment, you free trapped energy. Every time you choose self-worth, you change your frequency. And every time you take responsibility for your own healing, you become a different version of yourself. And that different version naturally attracts different experiences. And finally, if there is one thing I would like you to remember, then it is this. The lesson will repeat until it is loved, understood, embodied, and integrated. Not judged, not avoided, not bypassed, but integrated. Life is not happening to you, life is happening for the evolution of your soul. Every challenge carries a hidden invitation. Every trigger contains information. And every pattern points towards a lesson. And every lesson mastered brings you closer to the truth of who you really are. So if you find yourself facing a familiar challenge once again, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking a different question. What is this trying to teach me? Because that single question has the power to transform karma into wisdom, suffering into growth, and experience into awakening. And perhaps that is what your soul came here to do all along.